Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to join us. We've
it's a pleasure.
obviously just heard from Archer, Volocopter, Lilium, and Whisk, and now we get to hear from Airbus. So just to kick it off, I mean, tell us a little bit about City Airbus Next Gen. You know why it's more than just a platform, as you said. But I also like to know. You see all these exhibits here. What makes your design so special?
That's a great question. So good morning, everyone. Very happy to be here today. And as we were talking, just before we got on stage, I mean, how amazing that we are at the Paris Air Show and there's this much attention, space, and energy put to advanced air mobility. I think this alone is an incredible milestone that we together as a collective have achieved. And I think this is what, is a wonderful place to start. And I hope we can carry on this conversation from here and for the rest of the show events. So at Airbus, what are we doing for advanced air mobility, urban air mobility, or innovative air mobility? I think all of these terms encompass many different aspects of it, and I think you touched on it. So for us at Airbus, we are, of course, building the vehicle. We are right now on City Airbus Next Gen. City Airbus Next Gen for us is our product vision. And why do I say that? Because we have done 2 technology demonstrators before. So we have had Vahana in our Aki facilities in the Silicon Valley, so tilt winged aircraft. We have built City Airbus Alpha in our Germany facilities, a 2.3-ton full VTOL aircraft. With these 2 technology demonstrators, we really push the boundaries of what we want to test in terms of architecture and electric flight. So when you come and see us at the Airbus booth, just behind in the corner, you will see City Airbus Next Gen. So Next Gen for us, she is our product vision. So she is a combination of wing and full VTOL and 100% electric. And for us, we also focus on simplicity. Simplicity of design, simplicity of operation, and of course, decarbonization. She will be the first fully electric product that Airbus puts onto the market, a passenger-carrying product. She is a 4-pax cabin design. But for us, what we also focus on is business viability. And I cannot stress this enough. So in order for us to make all of what you see here viable in the long run and sustainable in the long run, we also have to be respectful of the business needs. So that means that we are additive when we think about new markets. I'm sure we'll touch on that later on as well. But we're also additive in terms of additional business for our operators, for our communities, and all the service providers who make all of this possible.
Okay, great. And just as a reminder to our audience, if you have Slido questions, send them in. We've already gotten one, but we want to hear your questions as well, not just mine. But my second one, you saw Sergio was showing how a lot of these ventures are burning through cash very quickly, and it is pretty widely expected that there's going to be a shakeout in AAM. So from your point of view, I mean, how big is the market going to be? How much room is there for how many entrants in this market?
I think, so if we take down the market question first. So when we looked at what advanced air mobility could be in the early days, the projections were in the trillions. And it's a great number, trillions, right? Very sexy, gets the investments going, gets everybody very, very excited. And I think when you break down what that number really is, it's not just the vehicle. The vehicle is the exciting part. The vehicle is what ignites. The vehicle is what, transforms our imaginations from when we were children and thought, okay, this is what I'm going to travel in one day. But beyond the vehicle is all of the services and support that make an industry and a market possible. So the trillion is broken down into many, many different subsegments along the value chain. The trillion is also broken down, and it's trillion, billion, whatever you want it to be. It is also broken down by different applications. And these are defined really by range. So you saw on the stage previously, we have people from, targeting regional markets, 250 kilometers and plus, to very, very short urban opportunities. At Airbus, what we pick is what we consider really the sweet spot. The sweet spot for us is 80 kilometers, 120 kilometers per hour speed, and this is a starting point, a reasonable starting point to build this future industry. And you talked also about cash. Yeah, it takes a lot of funding and a lot of patience and a lot of energy to bring any aerospace product to the market. So, and when we talk about the potential of this future market in venues like this, it keeps this momentum going, right? It becomes more and more real with each step that we take. When we see the aircraft, when we look at first ConOps, when we see the regulations actually coming to the table. So all of this is feeding what the future market and industry will be. So every day we're a step closer. So tomorrow will be even a step closer.
Okay. Wanted to ask you about autonomy. You saw Wisco's up here, and Wisco's going straight for autonomy out of the gate. I wanted to get your sense of if that is, how fast will the autonomy market in AAM evolve? How long is it going to take?
So we will go piloted first. I think this is clear. Our position on that hasn't changed. Our 2 technology demonstrators were fully autonomous, remotely piloted, but I think that's a technology demonstrator. We enter the market piloted. And we do this because we want to mature the market. There is an incredible amount of interaction that happens between a pilot and the aircraft and the manufacturer. We've seen this on all of our products with Airbus. This is part of the growth and maturity of the product. So this feedback, this maturation, this interaction is absolutely essential for us. When we look at autonomy from a technology point of view, there are already autonomous products that Airbus has on the market, as do many other people, from our VSR 700 that you'll see in the chalet to smaller drones. And when we think of autonomy as well, it's many stages of autonomy. Autonomy versus autonomous, remotely piloted, optionally piloted. So all of this is part of a very long autonomy roadmap that Airbus is investing in. But for us to enter the eVTOL market, we chose piloted first.
You chose pilot. I mean, there's a number cruncher analysts out there. We talk with them, and they don't think the business case for mass adoption closes until you get to autonomy. You disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that. I think when we think of the challenge when we look at mass market is some point in the future. Mass market is this trillion, multiple billion-dollar market that is what we're all striving towards. This is not where we will start. We have to start on a stepwise approach. And a stepwise approach means that we are building products that our communities and our citizens are trusting, they are passionate about, they want to use them, a service that they can rely on. And for us, when we think of the markets, it is air medical services. I speak about this as a personal passion of mine. So air medical services, ecotourism, scheduled shuttle services. This is how we grow and scale the market. And in these markets, yes, an extra seat is an extra paying seat, but also we're not focusing on this from the start. And this is why we choose our starting markets as well.
Okay. Should we take a question from the audience? Okay. I think, as you well know, this industry's taking it on the chin from environmentalists. You saw the protests at eBase. We had French environmental organizations yesterday criticizing our industry. So in that spirit, we have a question. Is it disingenuous to push the environmental credentials of eVTOL given the total energy consumption, rare earth metals, and manufacturing?
I think, so when we look at eVTOLs and electric flights and all forms of electric flight, there's not a single solution that will solve our decarbonization challenges. And I think we have to talk about it from a decarbonization point of view. And as Airbus, there's not a singular answer for decarbonization today. There are many, many paths across many, many products. Some of them are technology, some of them are operational, some of them are new aircraft, and some of them are new power sources. This is all part of how we work towards decarbonization. To stand and say a singular answer will solve all our problems, this would be disingenuous, and I don't think this is what we're talking about today. So if I remind, for us, City Airbus Next Gen, she is a full electric product that we bring to the market. In parallel, we are looking at SAF. We have our helicopters that have operated on 100% SAF. We bring that across the Airbus portfolio. We have hybridization, either at the aircraft level. We think of hydrogen, both hydrogen fuel cells and new concepts for hydrogen aircraft. So all of this has to be tested and matured from a technology perspective. And then what's also behind that question is, what is the supply chain going to do in order to be making sure that the supply and the recycling of all of these new technologies is also contributing to decarbonization? So a single solution will not fix it all. It cannot.
Okay. Another member of the audience is asking for timelines for next gen, first flight entering into service. Can you share more on that?
Absolutely. So I tell this story to anyone who's visited us on the booth. So I love going down to our production hangar, and I was there last week, and I'm literally watching our team put, the aircraft together. I mean, literally. So, rivets and all. And I'm an aviation geek, so I love that. I can't help it. For us, this is our prototype. So we've done the technology demonstrators, as I talked about before. So for us, it's really, we're not in a rush. We get this product right. We will do first flights and the whole flight test campaign next year. We are inaugurating next week, actually, a brand new test cell facility in our Germany facilities as well, so that we can do a lot of the testing, both aircraft testing and system level testing in-house, so we're not weather-bound or anything else that makes some of the first early flight phases a challenge. So this is what we're working on right now. Entry into service is sometime in the middle of the next half of this decade for us. And we're not precise about that because we will not put it into the market until we are confident that the market is ready and we are ready. This is also why when we think of our partners, and if you see the hologram that the colleagues have put together to highlight in a very unique way, I have to say, it's quite exciting to see it in different liveries. When we choose our partners, we also choose them in a way to say, guys, we have a very mid to long-term perspective as Airbus. So we are building something that will be a product and a future business pillar of Airbus. So if this is your timeline and this is your intent, then please come and let's build it together. Let's define how the aircraft will evolve. Let's define how the first operations will be. Let's define together how this is complementary to your existing technology portfolio and helps grow your business as well. And this is how we work with our partners.
Okay. Rotorcraft, obviously a big business for Airbus. Do you see what you're doing as complementing or challenging Airbus's rotorcraft?
It's a good question. Both. So I'm a rotorhead. I've grown up in the world of helicopters. I was hooked at a very, very early age. And when we look at the complementarity, so the complementarity is absolutely from a business perspective. Right? I know I talk about this a lot, but we're really at that stage. So what it takes to make this business work. And from an operator perspective, how is this technology complementary to their existing portfolio, and whether that is helicopters or fixed wing. I mean, I talk to operators who operate both, and the one thing that they consistently say is, do not try to replicate what I get out of my fixed wing and my rotary wing aircraft. Right? Those are very different purposes. Give me something that fills the gap. And here's where we have the potential to build something that fills this gap. Right? So I think this is the way that we think about it. Challenging from pushing the boundaries perspective. When we are testing electric flight on City Airbus Next Gen, we're also helping to accelerate, for example, the hybridization of our helicopters. Right? So the electrical backup system is something that we have on our existing helicopter fleet that we're introducing. So this means for the rotorhead geeks like me out there, we can operate in single engine environments where dual engines are required with an emergency backup system. And this is coming directly from our investment and research in electrification. So here it is challenging from pushing the boundaries of our development.
Okay. They asked me to switch to this. I don't know. I guess my headset's not working. Airbus is big in hydrogen, planning to fly a hydrogen-powered aircraft in 2035. That's not that far off. Do you expect to leverage all that hydrogen research at Airbus down the road for eVTOL?
We do, and I would say it's not just limited to hydrogen. Every single euro that we as Airbus, or dollar as we as Airbus are able to invest, goes through this virtuous circle of technology development. So On our eVTOL aircraft, we are testing distributed propulsion and electrical motors, which will help other products in the family. When we come to the hydrogen question, I think there is two different areas of hydrogen. Yes, the ZEROe program with our future hydrogen driven aircraft concepts. But when we go at a system level, what we have the opportunity to test is also hydrogen fuel cells. Right? So hydrogen fuel cells and the ability to use this technology in its pure form or in a hybridization application on an aircraft like eVTOLs, yes, we definitely will benefit from that. But I also say we don't wait for that, so it will not be our first foray into the market.
But could it come shortly? I mean, if Airbus really does succeed in 2035, is that time frame something that could be quickly adapted, or is it a long time after that?
The way that we look at our aircraft development is we constantly mature the architecture. Here, if you look around this hall and around the air show, you see many, many different concepts of what the architecture potential is. So this is one route. And then in parallel, what we test is many, many different technology advancements. So batteries, for example. We're testing batteries in parallel, but we're not waiting for batteries to be our first entry point into the market. Hydrogen is another one. So at the moment that it is ready, we are then applying it to the next evolution of the architecture. This is also part of how we're thinking about our design concept.
We have a question from the audience about the regulatory environment and the fact that EASA and FAA certainly are not in lockstep in regulating this. Do you think that they will at one point harmonize their eVTOL regulations?
They will, and they should. We should. You know, there is no aircraft product that can be truly successful in the global world that we live in that is based solely on a singular regulatory agency. And I think when we look at how EASA is evolving and how FAA is evolving, everybody's learning as we go. And everybody's taking a different path, but we are all looking as a collective for the absolute convergence. This is how traditional aircraft products are successful. It's how they can be deployed across the world, and how, again, the business is successful. So it will come.
So what do the regulators need to do? I mean, what's at the top of your regulatory wish list? And are there any regulatory issues out there that are of concern to you?
There's no singular point that is of concern. I think the expectation and the pressure on the regulators is, you know, as we get excited, as we see the eVTOL concepts, as we see the first flights and, you know, more and more people entering the space, the pressure is on the regulators now, right, to be able to keep up with the timelines that are there. So, and I think they're very conscious of that. This is what they tell all of us behind the scenes. So there's not a singular point of concern, but they also hold a great degree of responsibility to regulate everything, which is a new industry, which is a new technology, which is generally a new concept of operations, new pilot training. So there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, and sometimes it's not as sexy to talk about as, you know, the latest aircraft, and, you know, you can't show regulation challenges at an air show, but it's all there, and they're working so much behind the scenes, and we have to give it a little bit of time.
Sergio highlighted earlier that, you know, projections for this market are obviously all over the place, but we have someone in the audience just wants to know, plain and simple, how many of these aircraft do you expect to sell?
Well, we're not selling yet. So Airbus will not sell the aircraft until we are in serial production. So we're not there yet. But I won't give a number. I don't know if anybody really would. But honestly, for us to go into an industrialization, that means that we believe in the future of this market and this industry. So we wouldn't be here if we didn't.
Okay, so not ready to give numbers yet, because you obviously have
not
numbers.
Not today.
You don't invest without numbers.
Not today.
Not today.
But
okay.
Let's talk again soon.
Okay. How about public acceptance? I mean, what is it going to take to achieve public acceptance of eVTOL, particularly autonomous eVTOL?
I mean, I won't go into the autonomy again because this is not our first step, but even the public acceptance of eVTOLs, public acceptance of any new technology. For us, it needs to serve a purpose that is accessible and meaningful to everyone. So not just an industry, not just the OEM, but as citizens and members of communities, it has to be something that we reflect back and say, you know what, this is a service that I can imagine to invest in, this is a service that I will use, and this is a service that I, as an individual, will see a benefit from. And this is also why we go back to our use cases. So medical services, right? So tourism applications. These are the starting points that will tip us into mass market.
What is your status on choosing suppliers? Where are you on that?
So we've chosen all of our suppliers and we've announced them all in previous events as well. I won't list them now, but it's a mix for us from suppliers who are traditional OEMs. There is a lot that we are using of internal Airbus capability as well, as you can imagine. So we do that as well. And we really also test new suppliers, because here we are building a product that will be industrialized in a very different way than traditional aerospace supply chain. And we really want to test a very different set of suppliers. And all of that is public, so.
Okay. You noted early on, it's an ecosystem. It's not just a vehicle. So what are the requirements for infrastructure, and who's going to pay for all of this massive infrastructure that will be needed to support this industry?
So infrastructure comes in two different forms, I think. So digital infrastructure and physical infrastructure. If we think of physical infrastructure, so the choices that we've made for City Airbus Next Gen, she will fit on existing helipads today. So that means there's not a need for additional infrastructure. And also the battery technology that we have will allow us to start operations, again, without the need for additional infrastructure. Digital infrastructure is a different element. We don't talk a lot about it, but UTM. So how are we designing and regulating airspace, air corridors? How are we managing traffic that comes in and out of airports? We all talk about airport use cases, but how are we regulating traffic that comes in and has to cooperate with existing aircraft in an already very, very crowded digital airspace? So we're investing in UTM. So we have a whole group that is working with our air traffic management group dedicated to unmanned traffic management, the design and regulation of this digital infrastructure. And then when we talk to our infrastructure partners, it's also about making the infrastructure agnostic. There is no one that's going to develop a singular infrastructure for a singular OEM. So they take the feedback from all of us. They design something that is usable. Throughput is a big factor for them as well. But again, if we don't need it from day one, that already allows us to start first operations as Airbus.
You touched on batteries, really important, obviously, to this. And we have a question from the audience. What is the role of advanced high-energy density batteries, such as lithium metal and lithium sulfur, for the AAM business case?
So I'm going to preface this to say I am not an engineer, nor am I a chemist. We are very, very fortunate to work with some brilliant minds with our suppliers and our Airbus colleagues. And there is so much changing about battery technology right now. And in the end, all of us in this room and at the show, most of us at least, are chasing the same cells. Right? So we're all accessing the same cells on the market. So the magic of the cookery comes in, if we say that, in how we are designing the battery pack, how we are managing challenges such as thermal runway, how we're managing the choice between fast charging and replacement. So all of this leads to how much uptime a singular aircraft can have. And in the end, when there is a breakthrough that is, again, viable. There's so much research going into it right now that is viable from a cost perspective, an energy density perspective, and a certification perspective, then we will all switch to the next available. But we as Airbus, again, not waiting for this breakthrough, working on it, but we take what's available as a starting point.
We have a question from someone that notes, VTOLs have been around for a long time. Predate a lot of us since they talk about Air Canada's CL-84 back in the 1960s. Why not build on what's been done in the past with tilt rings and autogyros?
I think there's a lot of people who are building on what's been done in the past. When we look at eVTOLs, and if for those of us who are new into the industry, which, as I've said, I'm not, I'm a rotorhead by passion, there is a lot that goes into the design choices that we make. Yes, they may look sleeker, they may have new design concepts. The fact that we're dealing with electric aircraft allows us to simplify. You don't need the dynamic drivetrain, for example, or big rotors. So, but a lot of the fundamentals of, VTOL technology, the ability to take off and land in a clear standing point, is already incorporated into these aircraft. So I think it's already there. And then when we look at different kinds of tilt technology, I mean, there's people out there who are tilting wings, who are tilting, some of their props, who are tilting smaller portions. So everybody is testing many, many different concepts to see, again, what can be workable in the long run.
We are down to our last minute, but if we come back here in 2 years, in Paris in 2025, what's this industry landscape going to look like? Pull out your crystal ball and just give us a sense of what you think.
Oh, that's such a good question. First of all, I hope that we are back here in 2 years. That means we've had a successful 2 years, and we have even a bigger presence, that grows in comparison to the rest of our classic aerospace colleagues. I think what you will also see, by then we will have people doing first flights, lots more demonstrations. The regulators will be with us as well, and I hope also a lot more public engagement. So right now it is somehow a bit of a technology push. There's a great amount of technology. There's a great amount of insights that's going into building these aircraft and the ecosystems, and what we need also to make sure that we bring the public along with us as well. So in a lot of ways, we are designing and building something that today does not exist in its form. So this interaction between what the public wants and what we can do as an industry, this is for the formula for success.
Okay, well, we hope to see you again in 2 years. Thanks to our audience for all of your questions, and Balkis, thank you so much for taking the time.